Number: instant destruction. They had no chance to fire a shot back. The Velthari Dominion had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Their empire stretched across 3,000 worlds. Their warships numbered in the millions. They had conquered over 500 species and destroyed 37 others completely. No one in the known galaxy dared to challenge them. No one even thought about it. High Commander Xyrith stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. He was tall for his species, nearly 3 meters, with gray skin and 4 eyes that glowed with a soft yellow light. He had served the Dominion for 200 years. He had led the destruction of 6 civilizations. He had never known defeat. Today would be no different. At least, that is what he believed. The mission was simple. His scouts had detected a young species on a small blue planet in a distant arm of the galaxy. They called themselves humans. They had discovered faster than light travel only 60 years ago. They had built a small fleet of perhaps 300 ships. They had no idea what was coming for them. Xyrith looked at the tactical display floating in front of him. It showed his fleet in perfect formation. 40,000 dreadnoughts. Each one was 5 kilometers long. Each one carried enough weapons to crack a planet in half. Each one was crewed by 300 of the finest soldiers in the Dominion. 12 million Velthari in total. The third subjugation fleet. The pride of the Empire. Against 300 human ships. Xyrith allowed himself a small smile. This would not be a battle. It would be an execution. His second in command, Fleet Admiral Korath, walked up beside him. Korath was older than Xyrith, with scars covering half his face from battles long ago. He had served the Dominion even longer than Xyrith had. "We are ready to translate into their system," Korath said. "All ships report optimal status." "Good," Xyrith replied. "What do we know about these humans?" Korath pulled up a data file on the display. Images appeared, showing the strange creatures. They had only 2 eyes. Their skin came in various colors. They were small, barely 2 meters tall. They looked soft and weak. "They are a young species," Korath said. "They fight among themselves constantly. They have only recently stopped dividing their planet into separate nations. Their technology is primitive. Their weapons are laughable. Their fastest ships can barely manage a factor of 10 above light speed." Xyrith nodded slowly. The Velthari ships could travel at a factor of 1,000 above light speed. The humans were insects compared to them. "Have they detected our approach?" Xyrith asked. "Unknown. Their sensor technology is very limited. They may not know we are coming until we arrive. It does not matter either way. What can they do? Run? We would catch them in minutes. Fight? Their weapons cannot scratch our shields. Surrender?" Xyrith laughed, a harsh sound that echoed across the bridge. "We do not accept surrender. They should know that by now. Everyone knows that." It was true. The Velthari Dominion did not take prisoners. They did not make treaties. They did not negotiate. When they found a new species, they gave them one choice: serve or die. And even those who chose to serve were eventually worked to death in the mines and factories of the Empire. The Velthari believed they were the superior species in the galaxy. They believed all others existed only to serve them. This belief had driven them for 12,000 years. It had built their empire. It had made them strong. It had also made them blind. "Begin the translation," Xyrith ordered. "All ships, standard subjugation formation. We will emerge near their outer planets. We will broadcast our demands. When they refuse or fail to respond quickly enough, we will destroy their homeworld as an example. Then we will take their colonies as new territories for the Dominion." "Yes, High Commander," Korath said. He turned and began issuing orders to the fleet. Across 40,000 ships, engines powered up. Reality bent and twisted as the massive vessels prepared to jump across the light years that separated them from Earth. Soldiers checked their weapons. Gunners powered up their targeting systems. Everyone prepared for another easy victory. None of them knew they were already dead. The fleet translated into human space on a cold Tuesday morning, Earth time. They emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, just beyond the orbit of Neptune. The gas giant hung in the distance, a pale blue dot against the black void. Xyrith looked at his displays. Everything was as expected. He could see the human homeworld in the distance, a tiny blue marble. He could see their moon orbiting around it. He could see the scattered signatures of human ships and stations throughout the system. "Begin broadcasting our demands," he ordered. The communication officer nodded and activated the transmission systems. A message began playing on all frequencies. In every language their databases had recorded. It was the same message the Dominion had sent to hundreds of species before. Attention, inhabitants of this system. You have been discovered by the Velthari Dominion. Your territory now belongs to us. Your people now belong to us. You will surrender all military assets immediately. You will present your leaders for judgment. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species. You have 1 hour to comply. This is your only warning. Xyrith watched the message go out into space at the speed of light. It would take hours to reach Earth, of course, but that did not matter. He would give them their hour after it arrived. He was fair in that way. He always gave them a chance to obey, even though none ever took it. He turned to look out the main viewport at the stars. So many stars, so many worlds. All of them would eventually belong to the Dominion. It was inevitable. It was destiny. High Commander, a voice said behind him. It was the censor officer, a young Velthari named Dreth. He sounded confused. I am detecting something strange. Xyrith turned around slowly. What is it? I am not sure. There are energy readings coming from the asteroid belt. Very faint. I almost missed them. But they are there. Mining operations, perhaps, Korath suggested. The humans likely extract resources from their asteroids. Perhaps, Dreth said. But he did not sound convinced. The readings are unusual. They are very focused, very precise, almost like he stopped talking. His console had just lit up with 40,000 warnings, all at once, all at the same time. Xyrith stared at the display. He did not understand what he was seeing. The warnings were collision alerts. 40,000 of them, one for every ship in his fleet. What is this? He demanded. What is happening? Dreth's hands moved frantically across his console. His 4 eyes were wide with shock. Something is coming. Moving very fast. Very, very fast. I have never seen anything move this fast. How fast? Xyrith asked. Dreth looked up at him. His face had gone pale. 0.999 light speed, High Commander. They are moving at nearly the speed of light. Xyrith felt his blood turn cold. That was impossible. Nothing could move that fast. Nothing could be aimed at that speed. Nothing could be controlled at that velocity. Time to impact, he whispered. Dreth checked his console one more time. When he looked up again, there were tears in his eyes. 7 seconds, High Commander. Xyrith opened his mouth to give an order. To raise shields. To take evasive action. To do something. Anything. He never finished. 7 seconds was not enough time. 7 seconds was not enough time to do anything at all. Number. Instant destruction. They had no chance to fire. A shot back. 60 years before the Velthari fleet arrived. Humanity had made first contact with alien life. But it was not the kind of first contact they had dreamed about. There were no friendly visitors. There were no diplomatic missions. There were no gifts of technology and knowledge. Instead, there was a message. A human deep space probe had drifted into the territory of a minor species called the Korthan. The Korthan were a peaceful people. They had no weapons. They had no military. They believed in cooperation and friendship between all beings. When they found the human probe, they were excited. They wanted to meet these new creatures. They wanted to welcome them to the galaxy. But the Velthari found out about the probe too. The Dominion sent a fleet to the Korthan system. They destroyed every ship, every station, every city. They burned the Korthan homeworld until nothing lived on its surface. 6 billion Korthan died in a single day. Their entire civilization was erased from existence. The Dominion then sent a message to the source of the probe. To Earth. To humanity. You have been noticed. You have been marked. We will come for you when it pleases us. Prepare to serve or prepare to die. There is no other choice. Then they went silent. Humanity received this message on a quiet morning in April. The world leaders gathered in secret. They watched the recording of the Korthan destruction. They saw the cities burning. They saw the people running and screaming. They saw the Velthari ships firing without mercy, without pause, without any hesitation at all. And they understood. The galaxy was not a place of wonder and friendship. It was a place of death. The Velthari were not unique. There were other empires out there, other predators, other monsters who saw younger species as nothing but resources to be used and discarded. Humanity had two choices. They could try to hide and hope the Velthari forgot about them, or they could prepare for the inevitable day when the enemy came. They chose to prepare, but they did not prepare in the way the Velthari expected. They did not build massive fleets of warships. They did not try to match the Dominion's numbers or firepower. They knew they could never win that kind of war. The Velthari had thousands of years of experience. They had millions of ships. They had technology far beyond anything humanity could develop in a few decades. So humanity chose a different path. They studied the Velthari. They intercepted their communications. They analyzed their tactics. They learned everything they could about how the Dominion fought, how they thought, how they conquered. And they found a weakness. The Velthari were arrogant. They believed no one could challenge them. They believed their shields and armor made them invincible. They believed their weapons were the most powerful in the galaxy. They were wrong. There was one weapon the Velthari had never considered. One weapon that did not require advanced technology or rare materials. One weapon that any species could build if they had the will to use it. A relativistic kill vehicle. The concept was simple. Take a heavy object, like a rod of tungsten metal, accelerate it to near light speed, then aim it at your target. At 99.9% the speed of light, even a small object carries unimaginable energy. A tungsten rod the size of a building would hit with the force of a nuclear bomb. It would punch through any shield. It would tear through any armor. It would destroy anything it touched. And the best part was that it was almost impossible to stop. At that speed, the target would only have seconds of warning. Not enough time to dodge. Not enough time to shoot it down. Not enough time to do anything but die. Humanity began building. They hollowed out asteroids in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. They installed massive magnetic rails, each one thousands of kilometers long. They manufactured tungsten rods, each one 100 meters long and 10 meters wide. They built targeting systems and sensors and communication networks. They worked in secret. They hid everything behind sensor dampening fields and false asteroid surfaces. They told no one outside a small group of leaders and scientists. The rest of humanity went about their lives, not knowing what was being built to protect them. It took 50 years. 50 years of work. 50 years of preparation. 50 years of waiting for an enemy that might never come. But humanity knew they would come. The Velthari always came. It was what they did. It was all they knew. By the time the third subjugation fleet entered human space, humanity had built 40,000 relativistic kill vehicles. One for every ship they expected the Velthari to send. Each one was hidden inside a hollowed asteroid, invisible to any sensor. Each one was aimed at a precise point in space where the enemy fleet would arrive. How did humanity know where the fleet would arrive? Because the Velthari always did the same thing. They always emerged from hyperspace near the outer planets. They always arranged themselves in a sphere formation. They always broadcast their demands before attacking. They were predictable. They were arrogant. They were blind. And they were about to die. Admiral Chen Wei-lin was the commander of the Silent Watch, the secret organization that controlled humanity's hidden weapons. She was 62 years old. She had spent her entire adult life preparing for this day. She had trained for it. She had dreamed about it. She had prayed it would never come. But it had come. She sat in the command center buried 3 kilometers beneath the surface of Mars. Around her, 100 officers worked at their consoles. Screens showed sensor data from across the solar system. Communications channels buzzed with encrypted traffic. The Velthari fleet has arrived, her operations officer reported. 40,000 ships, standard sphere formation, just beyond Neptune orbit. Exactly where we predicted. Chen nodded slowly. Her face was calm, but her heart was beating fast. This was the moment everything had been built for. This was the moment that would decide humanity's future. Targeting status? She asked. All 40,000 RKVs have positive lock. Magnetic rails are charged and ready. Awaiting your command. Chen looked at the display showing the enemy fleet. 40,000 red icons arranged in a perfect sphere. Each icon represented a ship. Each ship held 300 enemy soldiers. 12 million lives in total. She thought about what she was about to do. She was about to kill 12 million beings. Beings who had families. Beings who had hopes and dreams. Beings who probably thought they were doing the right thing, serving their empire, following their orders. But she also thought about the Korthan. 6 billion dead, an entire species erased, and they were just one of many. The Velthari had destroyed 37 species completely. They had enslaved hundreds more. They had caused more death and suffering than any force in galactic history, and they would do the same to humanity if she did not stop them. Chen had read the intelligence reports. She knew what the Velthari did to conquered species. The work camps, the breeding programs, the slow extinction of cultures and languages and identities. Death was actually the kinder fate. She could not let that happen to her people. "What is the time to impact after launch?" she asked. 7 seconds, Admiral. 7 seconds. That was all the warning the Velthari would have. 7 seconds between the moment the weapons launched and the moment they hit. Not enough time to raise shields. Not enough time to jump to hyperspace. Not enough time to even understand what was happening. It seemed almost unfair, but the Velthari had never been fair to anyone. They had never given warning. They had never shown mercy. They had never offered their victims a chance to defend themselves. Now they would receive the same treatment. Chen took a deep breath. She looked around the room at her officers. Men and women who had dedicated their lives to this mission. Men and women who understood what was at stake. "This is Admiral Chen," she said, her voice steady and clear. "All stations confirm ready status." One by one, the stations reported in. Weapons ready. Targeting confirmed. Rails charged. Everything was prepared. Chen turned back to the main display. The Velthari fleet hung there in the void, completely unaware of what was about to happen. They were probably laughing at humanity right now, mocking their tiny fleet, planning how they would divide up Earth's resources. They had no idea. Chen closed her eyes for a moment. She said a silent prayer for the souls she was about to send into the void. Even monsters deserve that much. Then she opened her eyes. Fire. Number. Instant destruction. They had no chance to fire a shot back. The word echoed through the command center. Fire. Such a simple word. Such a small sound. But it carried the weight of millions of lives. Admiral Chen watched her display as the order traveled across the solar system. It moved at the speed of light, reaching the hidden weapons platforms scattered throughout the asteroid belt. Each platform received the command. Each platform confirmed receipt. Each platform prepared to unleash destruction on a scale never before seen in human history. Deep inside hollowed asteroids, massive machines came to life. Magnetic rails that stretched for thousands of kilometers began to hum with power. Tungsten rods, each one 100 meters long, locked into their firing positions. Targeting computers made their final calculations, adjusting for the movement of the enemy ships, the rotation of the asteroids, the pull of gravity from distant planets. Everything happened in less than a second. Then the rails fired. There was no sound in space, no explosion, no flash of light. The tungsten rods simply vanished from their launch tubes, accelerated to 99.9% the speed of light in the blink of an eye. They shot out of the asteroids like invisible needles, racing toward their targets faster than anything had ever moved in human history. 40,000 rods, 40,000 targets, 40,000 deaths rushing through the void. In the command center, Chen watched the tracking display. 40,000 green lines stretched from the asteroid belt toward the enemy fleet. Each line represented a weapon. Each weapon represented a ship that would cease to exist in 7 seconds. 6 seconds now. Her officers sat in silence. No one spoke. No one moved. They all understood what was happening. They all knew that in a few heartbeats, they would become the greatest killers in human history. 5 seconds. Chen thought about her daughter. She was 23 now, living on Mars, working as an engineer. She had no idea what her mother did. She had no idea that her mother commanded weapons that could destroy entire fleets. She thought her mother worked in logistics. 4 seconds. Chen had never told her the truth. She had never told anyone. The Silent Watch operated in complete secrecy. Its members lived double lives. They carried the weight of humanity's survival on their shoulders, and they carried it alone. 3 seconds. The tracking display showed the weapons closing in on their targets. The Velthari still had not reacted. Their ships sat motionless in their perfect formation. Their shields were at minimum power. Their weapons were not even aimed. 2 seconds. Why would they be? The Velthari did not expect an attack. They expected surrender. They expected fear. They expected humans to fall on their knees and beg for mercy. 1 second. They expected wrong. Impact. The display changed. The 40,000 red icons representing the Velthari fleet flickered once. Then they disappeared. All of them. At the same time, in the same instant, one moment, the mightiest subjugation fleet in Dominion history was there. The next moment, it was gone. Chen stared at the empty display. Her heart was pounding in her chest. Her hands were shaking slightly. She had known what would happen. She had planned for this. She had trained for this. But seeing it was different. Seeing 12 million lives blink out of existence in a single second was something no amount of training could prepare you for. "Confirm status," she said. Her voice was steady, but it took effort to keep it that way. Her sensor officer checked his console. His face was pale. His hands moved slowly, as if he was afraid of what he might find. "Confirmed, Admiral," he said quietly. "All enemy vessels destroyed. No survivors detected. The Velthari Third Subjugation Fleet has been completely eliminated." The room remained silent. No one cheered. No one celebrated. They had just won the greatest military victory in human history, and there was nothing but silence. Chen understood why. This did not feel like a victory. It felt like an execution. The Velthari had never had a chance. They had never fired a shot. They had never even known they were under attack until it was too late. They had simply died, quickly and completely, without any opportunity to fight back. It was efficient. It was effective. It was necessary. But it did not feel like something to celebrate. "Send reconnaissance drones to the impact zone," Chen ordered. "I want a full analysis of the debris. Confirm that no ships escaped. Confirm that no distress signals were sent." "Yes, Admiral." Officers began working at their consoles. The room slowly came back to life as people focused on their tasks. It was easier to work than to think, easier to follow orders than to consider what they had just done. Chen leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. She allowed herself a moment of rest. The hardest part was over. The immediate threat was eliminated. Humanity was safe, for now, but she knew this was not the end. The Velthari Dominion would learn what had happened here. They would send more ships. They would seek revenge. The war had just begun. At least, that is what they would think. They would think humanity had gotten lucky. They would think the Third Subjugation Fleet had made a mistake. They would think that more ships, bigger ships, better tactics, would give them victory. They would be wrong. Humanity had not gotten lucky. Humanity had prepared. And humanity was still preparing. Even now, deep in the asteroid belt, factories were building more weapons, more tungsten rods, more magnetic rails, more platforms hidden inside innocent-looking rocks. The Velthari could send 100 fleets. They could send 1,000 fleets. It would not matter. Every ship that entered human space would meet the same fate. Instant destruction. No warning, no mercy, no chance to fight back. This was the silent doctrine. This was humanity's answer to a hostile universe. This was how a young species survived against ancient empires. Not through strength, not through numbers, not through technology, through preparation, through patience, through the willingness to do terrible things to protect what they loved. Chen opened her eyes and looked at the main display again. The debris field was expanding now, spreading through the void where the Velthari fleet had been. Millions of tons of shattered metal and vaporized flesh, the remains of 40,000 ships and 12 million soldiers, all gone in 7 seconds. She wondered what the Velthari had thought in those final moments. Had they understood what was happening? Had they realized that their arrogance had led them to destruction? Had they felt fear for the first time in their long lives? Probably not. 7 seconds was not enough time to think. It was barely enough time to blink. They had probably died confused, wondering why their sensors were screaming, wondering why their ships were shaking, wondering why the universe had suddenly turned against them. They would never know. They would never understand. They would simply be gone, forgotten, erased from existence just like they had erased so many others. It was justice, in a way. Harsh justice, brutal justice, but justice nonetheless. Chen stood up from her chair. She had work to do. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. She needed to prepare her report for the Council. She needed to plan for the Dominion's response. She needed to ensure that humanity was ready for whatever came next. Maintain full alert status, she told her officers. The Dominion will learn what happened here. They will not take it well. I want all weapons platforms recharged and ready within 24 hours. I want sensor coverage expanded to maximum range. I want early warning systems active across the entire outer system. Yes, Admiral. her officers responded. Chen walked toward the door of the command center. She paused at the threshold and looked back at the main display one more time. The debris field was still visible, a cloud of destruction marking the grave of the third subjugation fleet. 12 million dead. No shots fired in return. Instant destruction. She had done her duty. She had protected her people. She had saved humanity from enslavement and death. But she did not feel like a hero. She felt like what she was, a killer. And she knew she would have to kill again before this was over. The Velthari would not stop. They could not stop. Their entire civilization was built on conquest and domination. They did not know any other way to exist. So humanity would have to teach them. Humanity would have to show them that there were some species that refused to be conquered. Some species that refused to submit. Some species that would fight back with everything they had. No matter the cost. The Velthari had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Their rule was about to end. Number, instant destruction. They had no chance to fire a shot back. The news reached the Velthari homeworld 3 weeks later. A patrol ship had been sent to check on the third subjugation fleet. They were supposed to have conquered the human system by now. They were supposed to be sending back reports of victory and lists of resources to be harvested. Instead, the patrol ship found nothing. Not nothing as in defeat. Nothing as in emptiness. The fleet was simply gone. 40,000 ships had vanished without a trace. There were no distress signals. There were no escape pods. There were no survivors floating in the void waiting for rescue. There was only debris. The patrol ship captain had never seen anything like it. The debris field stretched for millions of kilometers. Twisted metal, shattered hulls, fragments so small they could barely be identified. Whatever had happened to the fleet had been fast and complete. The ships had not been defeated in battle. They had been obliterated. The captain sent her report back to the homeworld. She included sensor readings and visual recordings. She included her own analysis, though she admitted she could not explain what had happened. She had never seen destruction on this scale. She had never imagined it was possible. The report arrived at the Imperial Palace on a sunny afternoon. Supreme Commander Veleth was enjoying a meal when his aide brought him the message. He read it once. Then he read it again. Then he threw his food across the room and screamed for his admirals to attend him immediately. An hour later, the highest military leaders of the Dominion gathered in the war room. They watched the recordings from the patrol ship. They studied the sensor data. They argued and debated and demanded explanations. No one had any. "This is impossible," Admiral Corvith said. He was the oldest of the assembled commanders, a veteran of 100 conquests. "The Third Fleet was our strongest force. They had the latest shields, the heaviest armor, the most powerful weapons. How could they be destroyed so completely? Perhaps they encountered another empire," Admiral Sithis suggested. She was younger than Corvith, ambitious and clever. "Perhaps the humans had allies we did not know about." "What allies?" Corvith demanded. "We have conquered every species in this region of space. There is no one left who could challenge us." "Then how do you explain this?" Sethis pointed at the display showing the debris field. "Ships do not destroy themselves. Fleets do not simply vanish. Something killed them. Something powerful." Supreme Commander Veleth raised his hand for silence. The admiral stopped arguing and turned to face him. Veleth was ancient by Velthari standards, nearly 800 years old. He had led the Dominion through its greatest expansions. He had overseen the destruction of more species than anyone could count. He had never known fear. But looking at the debris field on the display, he felt something cold in his chest. Something unfamiliar. "Analyze the debris patterns," he ordered. "Tell me how they died." The science officer stepped forward. He was a thin Velthari with nervous eyes and trembling hands. He had been working on the analysis since the report arrived. He did not look happy about his findings. "Supreme Commander," he began, "the debris patterns are consistent with high-velocity kinetic impacts. Very high velocity. Our calculations suggest the projectiles were traveling at approximately 99.9% the speed of light." The room fell silent. "That is impossible," Corvith said again. But his voice was weaker now, less certain. "I am afraid it is not," the science officer replied. "The energy signatures, the fragmentation patterns, the distribution of debris, it all points to relativistic kinetic weapons, projectiles moving so fast that they carry the energy of nuclear warheads. Projectiles that would punch through our shields like they were not there." Veleth leaned forward in his chair. Are you telling me that the humans built weapons that could destroy our fleet in seconds? Yes, Supreme Commander. Based on the evidence, I believe that is exactly what happened. The fleet was struck by thousands of projectiles simultaneously. They would have had only seconds of warning, perhaps less. Not enough time to raise shields. Not enough time to evade. Not enough time to do anything. Then why did they not fire back? Admiral Sethis asked. Why are there no human ships in the debris field? Why did we not take any of them with us? The science officer swallowed nervously. Because the humans did not use ships, Admiral. The projectiles appear to have been launched from fixed platforms, hidden platforms. We have found no evidence of any human vessel in the engagement zone. They killed our entire fleet without ever showing themselves. The implications of this hung in the air like poison. 40,000 ships, 12 million soldiers, destroyed in seconds. And the humans had not lost a single fighter. They had not risked a single life. They had simply pressed a button and erased the mightiest fleet in Dominion history. Veleth stood up slowly. He walked to the display showing the debris field and stared at it for a long moment. His mind was racing. His plans were crumbling. Everything he thought he knew about the humans, about the galaxy, about the nature of war itself was being rewritten. We underestimated them, he said quietly. Supreme Commander? Corvith asked. The humans. We thought they were primitives. We thought they were weak. We thought they would fall like all the others. Veleth turned to face his admirals. We were wrong. They are not weak. They are dangerous. They have been preparing for us, watching us, learning from us, and they have built weapons specifically designed to destroy us. Then we will send more ships, Corveth said. We will send 100 fleets, 1,000 fleets. We will overwhelm them with numbers, and they will destroy them all, Sithis said. Do you not understand? They know how we fight. They know our tactics. They know our formations. They have built weapons that counter everything we do. More ships will just mean more debris. Then what do you suggest? Corveth demanded angrily. That we surrender? That we admit defeat to a species that learned to fly among the stars only 60 years ago? I suggest we think before we act, Sethis replied coldly. I suggest we learn from this disaster instead of repeating it. Veleth raised his hand again, silencing the argument. He was thinking, planning, adapting. It was what had kept him alive for 800 years. It was what had made the Dominion strong. We will not send more fleets, he said finally. Not yet. First, we will learn everything we can about these humans. We will send spies. We will intercept their communications. We will study their technology. We will find their weaknesses. And then? Corvith asked. And then we will destroy them. Not with overwhelming force. Not with direct assault. We will destroy them with precision, with patience, with weapons they cannot see coming, just as they used weapons we could not see coming. Veleth returned to his seat and looked at his admirals. His yellow eyes were cold and hard. The fear he had felt moments ago was gone, replaced by something else. Something darker. The humans have taught us a lesson today, he said. They have shown us that the old ways do not always work, that strength alone is not enough, that even the mightiest empire can be brought low by an enemy it underestimates. He smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. We will learn this lesson well, and then we will teach the humans a lesson of our own. They may have won this battle, but the war has just begun, and the Velthari Dominion has never lost a war. The admirals nodded in agreement. They were afraid, though none would admit it. They were confused and uncertain and shaken to their core. But they were also Velthari. They had conquered the galaxy. They had destroyed species beyond counting. They would not give up because of a single defeat. No matter how devastating that defeat had been, no matter how impossible it seemed, the humans had made themselves enemies of the Dominion. They had killed 12 million Velthari soldiers. They had humiliated the greatest military force in the galaxy. They would pay for this, eventually, but first, the Dominion needed to understand what they were facing. They needed to know their enemy. They needed to prepare, because the next time they faced humanity, they would not make the same mistakes. At least, that is what they believed. They had no idea that humanity was already preparing for them. They had no idea that the Silent Watch was watching their every move. They had no idea that their plans, their spies, their schemes were all known to the small blue planet they had tried to conquer. The Velthari believed they were the hunters. They were wrong. They were the prey. And the hunt was just beginning. Number instant destruction. They had no chance to fire a shot back. 1 month after the destruction of the third subjugation fleet, a small probe entered the Velthari home system. It was not much to look at, just a metal cylinder about 10 meters long, covered in sensors and communication equipment. It moved slowly through the void, making no attempt to hide itself. The Velthari detected it immediately. Defense ships surrounded it within minutes. Weapons locked onto its hull. Commanders demanded to know who had sent it and what it wanted. The probe did not run. It did not fight. It simply began broadcasting a message on all frequencies. Admiral Chen's face appeared on every screen in the Velthari system. Every military display. Every civilian communication device. Every government terminal. Billions of Velthari saw her face at the same moment. She was sitting in a simple chair in a plain room. There were no decorations behind her. No flags or symbols. Just gray walls and soft lighting. She looked calm. Tired, perhaps, but calm. Her eyes were steady and clear. This message is for the Velthari Dominion and all who serve it. She began. Her voice was translated into the Velthari language by the probe's systems. My name is Admiral Chen Wei-Lin. I am the commander of Earth's defense forces. I am the one who gave the order to destroy your fleet. Across the Velthari homeworld, people stopped what they were doing. Workers in factories paused at their stations. Soldiers in barracks gathered around screens. Government officials abandoned their meetings to watch. Even Supreme Commander Velith, sitting in his palace, leaned forward in his throne to listen. 1 month ago, you sent 40,000 warships to my home, Chen continued. You came to enslave my people. You came to destroy our civilization. You came to do to us what you have done to hundreds of other species throughout your history. She paused for a moment. Her expression did not change. Her voice remained calm. You failed. Your fleet is gone. 40,000 ships and 12 million soldiers, destroyed in less than 7 seconds. They never fired a shot. They never had the chance. By the time they realized they were under attack, they were already dead. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. I am not telling you this to gloat, Chen said. I am not proud of what I did. 12 million lives is a terrible weight to carry, even when those lives belonged to enemies who would have shown my people no mercy. I did what I had to do. I will do it again if necessary. But I take no joy in it. Supreme Commander Velith stared at the screen. His hands gripped the arms of his throne so tightly that his claws dug into the metal. This human woman had killed more Velthari than any enemy in history. She had humiliated his empire. And now she dared to broadcast her face to his homeworld, speaking as if she had the right to lecture him. But he forced himself to listen. He needed to understand his enemy. He needed to know how she thought. We know what you are, Chen continued. We have studied your history. We have watched what you do to other species. The Korthan, the Selvari, the Dreth, the Morani, 37 civilizations completely erased, hundreds more enslaved and slowly destroyed. Billions upon billions of lives taken without mercy, without hesitation, without any feeling at all. Her eyes seemed to look directly at Velith, though he knew it was just a recording. We know there is no peace possible with you. We know that you do not negotiate. We know that surrender means death or slavery. We know that the only language you understand is force. So, we learned to speak your language. She leaned forward slightly in her chair. The weapon that destroyed your fleet is not our only defense. We have been building weapons for 60 years, ever since you sent us your first threat. Weapons you cannot imagine. Weapons you cannot detect. Weapons that will destroy anything you send against us. You believe you can overwhelm us with numbers. You are wrong. We have weapons hidden throughout our solar system. Tens of thousands of them. Hundreds of thousands. Every ship that enters our space will meet the same fate as the third subjugation fleet. Instant destruction. No warning. No mercy. You believe you can wait us out, starve us, isolate us. You are wrong. We are already expanding. Already building new colonies beyond your reach. Already spreading humanity across the stars where you cannot follow. You believe you can find weaknesses to exploit, spies to plant, traitors to corrupt. You are wrong. We know you are watching. We know you are planning. And we are watching you just as closely. Chen stood up from her chair. She walked closer to the camera, filling the screen with her face. Her eyes were cold now. Hard. Ancient. This is humanity's only warning. We give it not out of kindness but efficiency. I want you to understand exactly what will happen if you attack us again. Do not send ships to our space. We will destroy them. Do not send probes to spy on us. We will destroy them. Do not attempt to harm us through any means, direct or indirect. If we discover that you have acted against humanity in any way, we will not send a message. We will not give you a chance to explain. We will simply send something to your homeworld that will make our relativistic weapons look gentle by comparison. She paused, letting her words sink in. We did not want this war. We did not ask to be noticed by you. We were happy on our little blue planet, looking up at the stars and wondering what was out there. You are the ones who chose to make us your enemies. You are the ones who taught us what the galaxy is really like. And we learned. We learned that the universe is dark and cruel and full of predators. We learned that hope and optimism and trust will get you killed. We learned that the only way to survive is to be stronger, faster, and more ruthless than anything that wants to destroy you. You had 12,000 years to build your empire, 12,000 years to conquer the stars, 12,000 years to become the most feared force in the galaxy. We had 60 years to prepare for you. Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator looking at prey that did not yet realize it was being hunted. 60 years was enough. The transmission ended. The probe went silent. Across the Velthari system, billions of beings stared at blank screens, trying to process what they had just seen. In the Imperial Palace, Supreme Commander Velith sat motionless on his throne. His admirals stood around him in silence. No one spoke. No one moved. No one knew what to say. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Velthari Dominion knew fear. Real fear. The kind of fear they had inflicted on countless other species. The kind of fear that made you question everything you believed about yourself and your place in the universe. They had ruled the stars for so long. They had crushed every enemy. They had never faced a challenge they could not overcome. But now they faced humanity. A species that refused to die quietly. A species that refused to submit. A species that had taken everything the Velthari represented and turned it back against them. The humans were not stronger than the Dominion. They were not more numerous. They did not have better technology or more resources or a longer history. But they had something the Velthari had never encountered before. They had the will to do whatever was necessary to survive, and that made them the most dangerous enemy the Dominion had ever faced. In the dark spaces between stars, humanity watched and waited. Their weapons were ready. Their defenses were strong. Their resolve was unbreakable. They did not know what the future would bring. They did not know if the Velthari would accept their warning or ignore it. They did not know if this was the beginning of a long Cold War or the prelude to the complete destruction of one species or the other. But they knew one thing for certain. They would survive, no matter the cost, no matter the sacrifice, no matter what they had to become. Humanity would survive. And anyone who tried to destroy them would learn the lesson that the Third Subjugation Fleet had learned. Instant destruction. No chance to fire a shot back. Not today. Not ever. The stars belonged to those who were willing to fight for them. And humanity had proven, beyond any doubt, that they were willing to fight. The galaxy would never be the same again.